We can now talk to former Pentagon Chief and Senior Defense and National Security Analyst Wes J. Bryant. Wes, thank you for joining us once again. We've just been hearing that Benjamin Netanyahu has been speaking in the last few minutes. I was just discussing with Yusuf there his claim that there's growing evidence, according to Netanyahu, that Ayatollah, the chief, has gone. Those are his words, that he's gone. What are you hearing? And is this what the US would have wanted? Is this the main aim from the US operation?
Truly, right now, a criminal madman is in charge of the most powerful military in the world, a tyrant. Really, this is submission through tyranny. It's not peace through strength. We've got an administration obsessed with projection of strength and power. We've got senior military leadership complicit in enabling a war criminal and a tyrant, truly spineless generals on their knees. To answer your question directly, Trump never wanted diplomacy. He's the most warmongering president in our history. He's bombed more nations in his 2 terms than any president in U.S. history. This has been planned. This Iran attack has been planned for months. The plans for the date was to coincide with Ramadan. We have direct attacks in the city of Qom, a holy city to the Shia Muslims in Iran, right? Trump's talked about regime change ever since he came on to this second term, right? He never wanted diplomacy last year. He feigned diplomacy while then striking Iran, and he did it again this time. Even worse was enjoining with Israel, being manipulated by Israel. The so-called imminent threat that we have here is false. The intelligence on nuclear weapons capabilities, it doesn't exist. International bodies, our own U.S. intelligence has told us that. As of the strikes in last June, the Trump administration, Trump himself, argued vehemently that the nuclear program that they did say existed, the nuclear weaponization program within Iran, was destroyed. And now suddenly it's back again. We're supposed to believe this. And then we're supposed to believe that there's some kind of benevolence toward the Iranian people. Well, I can say, and we've seen reports now, by and large, Iranian people, even the ones against the regime, they don't want their entire country bombed by the U.S., let alone by Israel.
But what do you think sorry to interrupt you, what do you think the Iranian people actually want? And as far as the situation is concerned, they will obviously be scared, but some of them do want a regime change. But you disagree that this is the way to go about it?
Absolutely. This just risks, stability in the region. It risks the lives of U.S. troops, of our allies in the nation, and it risks civilian Iranian lives. We're already seeing reports of a school being hit in the south of Iran, potentially killing, upwards of 85 school children. So, just as I am adamantly against my administration here in the U.S., this Trump administration, I do not want a foreign power coming in and bombing my nation to remove who I, on my end, believe is a fascist dictatorial tyrant.
And Wes, if tensions...
It's the same with the Iranians.
Sorry, if tensions continue to rise, what do you think the next phase of this conflict would look like?
I truly hope that this will remain limited, that strikes, if they haven't stopped already, that they do. Whatever strategy he has here is then going to take the Iranians to the negotiating table and pressure them or at least try to pressure them to his will. But, again, the Iranian foreign minister even said this morning in an interview on NBC News that, their nuclear program, they insist, has been peaceful from the start, but they've shown their goodwill toward that end. The U.S. is the one that's canceled negotiations time and again, canceled deals, but that they're unwilling to give up their ballistic missile program, nor their as well as their nuclear enrichment program toward things like energy and biomedical purposes, right? And he insisted that their ballistic missile capabilities intentionally only extend to about 1,500 miles radius, not able to reach the US or Europe. So I think the Trump administration is going to have a really hard time bringing everything to the table that they want to bring, in lieu of completely decimating the entire regime, their entire military, which will involve chaos in the Middle East, chaos inside Iran, and a whole lot of unnecessary death.
Can I talk to you about the strikes? And I know that you've made it abundantly clear in this interview that you don't agree with the action, but can you help our viewers understand how the US and Israeli strikes were coordinated? I just want to get a sense for how is the intelligence used to determine what the strike points are and what's the process?
Well, typically, the U.S. may receive shared intelligence from our allies. Israel in this case being the primary, but we operate always under our own intelligence vetting, or at least we should, and we always operate under our own doctrine and rules of engagement. So, the U.S. we know we staged F-22s there fairly recently, right out of Israel, right? So we saw all of this coming as far as a joint operation, but the U.S. Very much so should be operating under its own targeting doctrine and rules of engagement. What I worry about, what I hope is that the U.S. sticks to its history, at least in recent war, with some exceptions, with the Trump administration's recent conflict initiation, specifically in Yemen, some exceptions on higher cases of civilian harm. But I hope that the U.S. sticks to its longstanding doctrine and culture of protecting civilians. Israel does not have that culture, does not have that kind of targeting doctrine. So, I'm incredibly worried that Israel is now exporting their truly genocidal tactics that they've displayed in Gaza and the West Bank into a war in Iran. And we're locking in step with them in this. So, any civilian harm that they execute or that they cause, the U.S. is really complicit in.